down. We the talk around town. Alex threw the ball to Smokey for a touchdown. It's fourth down and you don't really want no more. We've been winning from the door. You should check the scoreboard. Check the scoreboard.
Welcome back to the Scoreboard. This week we have a doubleheader. This is the XFL part of the week, but we have an overlap. So we have the USFL kicking off this week into week 1. We have the XFL going into week 9, so it's about playoff time. And we'll have the two spring leagues actually go head-to-head now for a full month during the XFL playoffs and while the USFL season is starting. So we'll have a separate video for the predictions for the USFL. This one's the XFL, which we're going to start first because we're already in the groove. Smokey, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm better than Orlando Guardians fans right now because you had that little shimmer of hope. You finally won a game, and then it went right down the drain this past week. Feel bad for them because the team actually is not bad. They're not as bad as their record, but now you're out of the playoffs, so there is no hope left. You can join the Vipers down on the bench.
They have a win on the season, so I will take that because that's all I wanted all year. That's all I predicted all year. For the Guardians to win one, I don't think we'll see if they win another one. It's definitely possible this week, but we'll get to that. How are our prediction standings before we start with these games?
Oh, yeah, not good for me. So we disagreed on, what was it, 2 last week. And you got both of those right. I had the Brahmas, you had the Roughnecks. I had the Sea Dragons, you had the Defenders. Now, these games were extremely close, and they could have went either way, but it is what it is. You got 3 points on the week, I got 1. That brings the total 22 for you and 19 for me.
You know what? That is almost a comfortable lead. Now, there's 2 more full weeks and then 2 playoff weeks. 3 points is pretty comfortable. I don't mind this at all, but I have to make sure to not slip up here. So
yeah, don't just pick my picks.
Those definitely went my way. I'm not gonna. If you want, we can actually, because it's critical phase now. If you want, we can alternate who goes first as well. If you like.
I mean, either way, if you already have yours predetermined, I'll trust you. But either way, whatever you want to do.
Most of the time I do, except for when it's one of those where I don't have an opinion, so I pick the opposite of yours. But this week that is not the case.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say you should just pick the opposite of mine on every single one, and we'll be good here.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do that. I think we can alternate. I'll go first on every other pick. So, by the way, how do you like the overtime, XFL overtime system?
It's weird. It's nothing like the NFL. It's nothing like college. I don't know. I don't really know if I like it or dislike it. It's crazy that we got all the way to week 8 before we saw it. And I didn't even think about that until that game. I was like, hey, this is the first time we've seen an overtime here, but I think it is. And I don't know. What's your opinion on it? I really don't like it or dislike it. Some people are complaining about it. I know that.
See, I find it intriguing because it's probably more fair than what the NFL overtime rules were, especially before the playoff change. Like we know the egregious example with the Bills and Chiefs and 2 years ago in the playoffs in the 2021 season, where you win a coin flip, you win a game. That can happen, and this is a system that seeks to eliminate that. But of course, it's gimmicky, so it takes some getting used to. It reminds you of like hockey, like the shootout at the end of a hockey game.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily hate it. It is foreign, but I don't mind it. Yeah. I like that they're experimenting with this. I may not think that this will establish itself for the long run, at least not in the NFL and not anytime soon. But I like that they're doing it because the NFL overtime is deeply flawed, and the things that these leagues can capitalize on is improving on where the NFL is flawed, and they've done a great job doing that in terms of officiating reviews, right? The transparency there, where they have Blandino, like they actually bring him in on TV to explain his decisions in real time. That's blatantly missing in the NFL, and that causes a lot of fan frustration in the NFL. So XFL is doing a great job of that. I like that they're taking NFL flaws and experimenting with it. That's the risks they have to take. That's what they need to do. So I'm positive for it. Obviously, it helps a little bit that the Battlehawks ended up winning the first ever XFL overtime, just continuing to make history on their path to becoming the first great dynasty of the modern XFL, of course. But yeah, I like the system. I don't mind it, and I would probably watch it again, though it can seem a bit anticlimactic when it's over in like 2 or 3 minutes as well. But
that game was weird, though.
I don't mind.
That game was really weird. It almost felt like maybe the refs were wanting the Battlehawks to win that game in the end, which I mean, it makes sense, right? I'm not gonna say the XFL is rigged, but you do want your biggest fan base to have the best shot at making the playoffs, obviously. So if there's any way you can make sure the Battlehawks and the Defenders make it into those playoffs, then you're going to do that, right? Not that the Vipers were a legitimate threat to anyone anyway, and they should have won that game. But they did, the refs did seem to be leaning in St.
We're
Louis's
gonna
favor.
find out this week. We'll find out this week because this week we have the critical game for the North. But that is last on our slate, actually. So we'll start off with the lowly South. Well, the Roughnecks are in the South. The lowly part of the North and also the South.
Yeah.
Vipers at the Roughnecks.
Yeah, I still don't know what to make of this. Jalen McClendon was okay, not great. I think he was much better in week 8 than week 7 than week 8. Rod Smith was still great. Gmo Allison once again was your number 1 wide receiver there. But the team is still not good. I think they're better than their record, but they're still not good. But on the other side, the Houston Roughnecks are frauds, like I've been saying. I don't think they're that good. I mean, they did get a win last week and proved me wrong. It seems like if I pick them, they're going to lose. If I don't pick them, they're going to win. So I makes it tough here. Maybe I should pick the Roughnecks and let the Vipers win. But at this point, it doesn't matter because they're not making the playoffs. So I think I'll take Brandon Silvers and Max Borghi and the rest and go with the defense of the Houston Roughnecks at home.
Yeah, it makes sense to pick the Roughnecks if you want your Vipers to win, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If it's an easy jinx. Yeah, I'll agree with you on this one. I'll go Roughnecks as well, if only for the integrity of like the division split, because this is the best of the South versus the worst of the North. Imagine if we had like the best team in the NFC play the worst team in the AFC. And it was like a legitimate competition because that team in the AFC has lost to every other NFC team already. And the divisions were so split. So that is of course an issue. So I'm gonna keep up the faith as well. Say the Roughnecks get it done. I think fundamentally they're a better team. Even though the Vipers look very good. I mean, they were in it and they took the Battlehawks to overtime. So they are always there for like a surprise, for an upset. I don't think they get it done though. Defense is gonna hold steady and the Roughnecks win. We have the Guardians at the Brahmas. I'll go first on this one. Okay. So we alternate. And I'll go straight out ahead. I'm gonna pick the Orlando Guardians again. I'm gonna go with them. This is a low-hanging fruit if you collect a second win, and this is actually the way to establish yourself as not the worst team in the league. Because you end up beating the Brahmas, you can make an argument you are legitimately a better team than the Brahmas, because the Brahmas are terrible. Kurt Benkert was out last week. Jack Cohn started and stunk up the joint, and if that's what's going to happen again this week, I think the Guardians are probably the more effective offense. And even though they are playing on the road, the Brahmas only have 1.5 points here, like given by the books. So Vegas is already saying the Guardians are actually a slightly better team. I tend to agree, and so I'm taking the Guardians.
Yeah, I want to disagree, but there is no way I'm picking the Brahmas. The Brahmas are really bad, especially with Jack Cohn. If there's no Kurt Benkert, which they weren't even winning with Kurt, but with the fractured ribs, he's not going to play, obviously. Maybe he comes back. Maybe he comes back with a flat jacket or something. I still don't want to pick the Brahmas, because I'm afraid of Jack Cohn, and he's going to be really bad, and nothing on that team can save this team at this point. Hines Ward, you might as well play for a good draft pick and start over next year. On the other side, Quentin Dormandy still threw for over 300 yards in the loss, and they have absolutely no running back play. They do have great a great passing game. Tyrell Buckley is still mad at the team, obviously, but at least they do have a great passing game, and they're going to get their second win here, and Cody Latimer is still the greatest tight end in this league, going with the Guardians on the road.
It feels like Tyrell Buckley has stayed mad at this team since week 1.
Yes.
Maybe not the best atmosphere to breed success. But yeah, well, we agree. We agree on the pick. Next one, you go first. I'm just noticing you get to go first on the easy ones, and I have to go first on the hard ones. But that's what it is. Renegades at the DC Defenders.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't matter because I had all these picked out beforehand, and I'm done picking underdogs. I'm done picking upsets. I am just going with proven winners. I need to get my 3 points back. But right here, Luis Perez started, and that was my problem last week. They started Luis Perez. I know they're going to win if they start Luis Perez, except for right here because they're going against the DC Defenders. Even though I picked them to lose last week, the DC Defenders looked great. It was a really, really close game. Man, it was so close. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. Jordan Te'amu, 4 touchdowns through the air. That is great. Abram Smith is still the best running back in the league. Chris Blair and Lucky Jackson. I love Lucky Jackson. For the Renegades, though, there's not much going on. I think they're better. You know what? I think the Renegades are better than the Roughnecks. I think they are number 1 in that division. But this is the DC Defenders. I have to take the Defenders at home here.
Yeah, I would like not to take the Defenders, but I don't think I really have a choice. I think at this point, with that win over Seattle, they've kind of deservingly, unfortunately, inked the division title, and they're not going to blow it away against the Renegades and the Brahmas in the final 2 weeks. I don't think they will. Defenders win this one at home, huge beer snake, and I think we have in the MVP. We'll get back to the MVP conversation at the end of the video, but it's gotten uncomfortably close over the last few weeks for several reasons, so we have to have that discussion again. But yeah, Defenders, I agree with that. Here's the big highlight game. Yeah. This is the money game. We have the Sea Dragons at the St. Louis Battlehawks.
I am having second guesses here because yes, I did pick a winner for this game, and now I'm wondering if I need to go out on a limb or if it's even going out on a limb. Ben DiNucci and the Sea Dragons look great. They really do. Even in their loss, coming off of that 5-game win streak, that was a really close game. It came right down to the wire, and they just happened to come up just a tad short. Philip Lindsay is in at running back. I noticed he was on the depth chart a couple weeks ago, and I pointed him out last week on the show that you need to get on Philip Lindsay, and he's going to get a full workload from this point on, in my opinion. That's a guy you really need to jump on at running back. Jacor Pearson and Jawan Green, they are 2 of the best wide receivers in the league. Jim Haslett has this team running. On the other side, here's the thing. Nick Tiano was in instead of McCarron. And they didn't even tell us that until right up before the game started. And I think the Vipers could have beaten this team with Nick Tiano. Now, if it was McCarron, it wouldn't have mattered. The Battlehawks would have won by 10 at least. Brian Hill's fumbling all over the field. Hakeem Butler is still great. Yeah, man, I'm going to change my pick. I'm going to change it right here because I know who you're picking. And I will be picking the Sea Dragons on the road. And I hope McCarron doesn't play this game. He probably will.
So while you were talking, I realized I should have gone first, but then I realized it doesn't matter because you know who I'm picking. Everyone knew who I'm picking right beforehand. This is the team that I'm always picking. That's my team. So yeah, I'll take the Battlehawks. Yeah, I need McCarron to play though. This is the biggest game of the season by far. This is win and you're in. Okay, Battlehawks win, they clinch the postseason, and you can rest them in week 10, and then you go into next week. I'm hoping that the McCarron being sidelined against the Vipers was a precautionary measure. Apparently he has some shoulder soreness. I hope it's not an actual injury that forced him to stay out. My hope is that they're playing the Vipers. We can win this with a backup. Let's give him a week of rest because he needs to be 100% when we play Seattle. That's my hope. Like you said, it's not very well covered at all in the news. No one knows what's going to happen. Is he going to be able to start this weekend or not? But I think if at all able, he has to start. If it's somehow possible, he clears whatever protocol, injury list, he has to start because it's the most important game of the season. If you win this, you're in, and if you lose, it's going to be trouble. It'll come down to the final week. So I have faith in him starting. The sportsbooks don't seem to have that much faith. They got the Battlehawks 1 point ahead, which at home doesn't mean much. So close game, probably either way. We kind of expected that with how the Sea Dragons rallied towards the second half of the season. But to me, AJ will play, and he'll make one more play than beThe, and he has like a slightly better receiving core, and at the end of the day, he'll get it done. And it might be a high-scoring game. I'm expecting this to go like 25-25, or even 30-30 kind of situation. With McCarron back, with a week's worth of rest, fresh shoulder joint, gets it done, gets the Battlehawks to the postseason. And by the way, if the NFL is rigged, the XFL is rigged, as you say, potentially in favor of the Battlehawks, you had to agree, right? Then they would. I mean, for sure, the Battlehawks would.
I had second thoughts while you were talking. I was like, what if it is rigged? That means I'm definitely going to lose this matchup.
Yeah.
But
see, the XFL is hard to rig, though.
But then again, maybe we just need that drama of both teams having the same record going into the final week. So, they wanted the Battlehawks to win against the Vipers. Maybe they want the Sea Dragons to win this game.
Oh man, do you think so?
Yeah, have a little drama, a reason to watch Week 10 at that.
That is true. Yeah, there's really no other reason to watch Week 10. Oh man, I hope not. They want to watch the playoffs are bigger than Week 10, right? They got to make sure that we have playoff football for St. Louis, right, for the big fan base.
I'm actually pulling up the schedule for Week 10 right here. Let's see.
Battlehawks host the Guardians and the Sea Dragons the Vipers, so they're both kind of
they both might win that. What
kind of garbage
then?
games.
I guess it comes down to the head-to-head, huh?
I'm assuming the tiebreaker rule will then have Seattle go in, because if you have two teams tied, it's head-to-head. I think is the next tiebreaker. So then Seattle goes in. Whoever, if Seattle wins, they control their destiny Week 10. If the Battlehawks win this one, they're in.
Okay, so they don't want that. They want the Battlehawks in the playoffs.
Yes.
Definitely.
So that means St. Louis wins this game. AJ McCarron comes back, wins this game. Speaking of AJ McCarron, we know the M stands for MVP, the C stands for clutch. Who's your MVP right now? What's the short list?
Oh, Mr. XFL right now. I got Jordan Ta'amu. I know that McCarron had the edge over him for the whole season, but he was out last week. And Ta'amu had a 4-touchdown game and looked like Mr. XFL in that shootout win. I am leaning toward Ta'amu right now. And then there's McCarron. They're probably neck and neck. Other than that, there is no one else. There's beThe is in a distant third right now. So I'm going with Ta'amu.
You know what? I'm obviously going McCarron, and I'm still going to cite these passes. He got 17 touchdowns, leads the league in touchdowns, has more passing yards than Ta'amu. Of course, that is a running team. Much better completion percentage than Ta'amu. beThe actually leads the league in passing yards, but his touchdown to interception rate, he's thrown 15 touchdowns, but the touchdown to interception ratio, I think, disqualifies him. But he is, I'd say, in the conversation, though probably it's between McCarron and Ta'amu. I agree with that as well. For the longest time, we used to have kind of the big four, DiNucci and Brandon Silvers in there as well. Mm-hmm. But what concerns me is this last game. Of course, McCarron missed it. In the NFL, missing one game for your MVP campaign is not great, but it is not a death sentence. Missing 2 or more games in the NFL is problematic. We've seen that with Josh Allen last season, for example. It gets iffy because it's not so easy to catch up on. XFL season's shorter. We only have 10 games where the NFL plays 17. So even a single game being missed counts a lot more into the overall standings, which is an issue. I think McCarron has to step it up. I think he has to play these final 2 weeks if he wants to win the MVP, and he has to play well, has to outplay Tambo, because I think right now they're on a pretty even playing field. Given that Tambo has the extra, running threat, he has better, more rushing touchdowns, more rushing yards. McCarron's still been the better quarterback overall, just purely playing the position wise. But that one game, that's 10% of the season. That is a big dent, and that is the one thing that I didn't want to see happen. Because of that, I think the MVP race is close, but I'm still going with McCarron. I'm saying he's playing this week, and I'm saying he's beating Ben DiNucci at home, statement win, and he takes on the MVP, and the Battlehawks also go to the playoffs, and they go beat the Defenders in Washington, and then they beat the Roughnecks. And by the way, if the Battlehawks win the championship, I'm going to buy a t-shirt, Battlehawks t-shirt. I'm making that promise right now. Hold me to it.
I'm really wishing right now I would have picked the DC Defenders as my team in this league, because that would be much more interesting for us on this show.
Yeah.
And in the playoffs, I'm picking the Defenders. That's for sure, so that we can have
that's
something.
For sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do want to see the Defenders and the Battlehawks go at it.
Yes.
Now,
I think everyone wants to see that.
Yeah. When we get to the championship game, though, it's going to be a massacre for the North, whoever it is, whether it's the Battlehawks or Defenders, or the Renegades or the Roughnecks. Definitely, the North is going to come out of that one.
Yeah. It seems like the championship gets decided in week 1 of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. But as far as the South,
feel like that.
Yeah, exactly. As far as the South, though, I'm leaning toward the Renegades being the best team. I think with Luis Perez, they are better than the Roughnecks with Brandon Silvers.
They play the Roughnecks in week 10.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be very interesting, because they'll probably have to play back-to-back there.
It could be for the division. Mm-hmm. Still possible. The Roughnecks have clinched the playoffs, but not the division. So
yeah,
still possible. But yeah, I'm rolling with the Hawks, cause law and all that. McCarron comes back and he cleans house. I believe in it. But let us know what you think in the comments as well. What's your picks here? What's your playoff projections? Maybe full playoff bracket at this point, because we could have the full playoff picture. It could be sorted. Okay, if the Renegades win, the Battlehawks win, the playoff picture is done. Week 10 has no meaning at all. But it could still be spicy next week if those don't happen. So let us know what you think. And do you have anything to add, Smokey, about the XFL here?
No. I guess that's it for this week.
That'll be it. Be sure to also go check the USFL. It's going to be a separate video you can also find on this channel. For week 1 predictions, so we're diving into a whole new thing on that one. But for this one, let us know what you think about the XFL, and we'll see you in the next one.
Deuces.
Check the scoreboard. Ha.